Vijayalakshmi S is an experienced master certified coach and mentor. She is a multifaceted management professional with over 20 years of experience in consulting and human resources with a background in law. Her coaching specialties include executive, leadership, wellness, and conflict coaching. She is a systemic and team coach, as well as an accredited mediator. Among the first worldwide to earn the distinguished ICF Advanced Certification in Team Coaching, ACTC, Vijay served as president of ICF Chennai Charter Chapter 2020 to 2022 and was the first recipient of the ICF India Coaching Excellence Guru Award in 2022. A coaching evangelist and a believer in the power of the collective and universal connections, Vijay is the founding volunteer of Coaches for You, an impactful pro bono coaching initiative of the professional coaching community. Passionate about all sports, health, and fitness, she is certified SFG kettlebell and GFM movement instructor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Vijay S.
Hey everyone. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Very kind of you. So I'm just going to close my chat box if that's okay. And Jimmy, maybe you can help me through that. Gotcha. So good morning to you all. It's pretty late in the evening here in Chennai, which is the south of India. And I think Jimmy already mentioned my chapter affiliation, etc., and my background in coaching. So I think when a couple of months ago, when Nisha and Jimmy had reached out for me to run this masterclass and be proud of this, I was quite excited because I think this is a great effort that's happening to bring in, I think, a diversity of master coaches from across the world to really, I think, pick and explore topics that are of relevance to the coaching profession. So hats off to that. And, and this planning was done many months in advance, which also speaks about the professionalism that the team has. And before we realized it, it's November here, and, I am here. So very happy about, and I was just telling Jimmy a little while ago that I'm always, amazed by the power of how technology has just brought the world so close. And, we as a coaching community can really leverage, on each other's strengths, perspectives, talents. And I think that's really beautiful. So kudos to that. And I hope to see more of that in the coming years. The topic really today, and I'm just going to bring up my screen in just a bit. But before that, I just want to give a little bit of context. The topic that I picked today, and, and Jimmy gave me a thumbs up for that, was, seems very simplistic on the face of it. And this is something as coaches, and I'm assuming all of us here are professional and practicing coaches. And it's okay for me to use some coaching parlance, terminology, etc. In case something doesn't make sense, just stop me and we can talk about it. So the topic I have chosen today is rather simplistic, because I think pretty much anybody who starts off on the coaching journey from day one of coach training or wherever else you started, this is the word that you would hear. And, it's like money for a finance professional. So I equate it to that. So I have picked on potential, and potential is all we're going to talk about today. But hopefully the length and breadth of it, and we will really do a deep dive. There's another reason why I picked on it. Actually, 3 reasons. So the second one is this. Like with all professionals, and I think in any professional domain, sometimes we get so caught up with, various tools, techniques, certain standards, professional standards, competencies, skills, and everything that we forget our basics. We kind of lose track of, why we started off or why we got into this in the first place. So my presentation or my session would also be very fundamental. And I think increasingly, it's like, all the hacks, all the skills, you know the drill, etc. But halfway on the journey, you just stop and say, hey, why did I take up this journey in the first place? So, it's also for an inquiry like that I have chosen this. A third one, of course, I've also used the verb of play and not anything else in the context of potential. That's also because that is the tagline of my own professional coaching practice. So 3 reasons, and you see that on my Zoom backdrop. So with that, I will bring up, my slides. And in the meanwhile, as I'm doing that, if you could, with all honesty, let me know what brought you here today, and is there anything in particular that you are curious about or want to contribute to, want to discuss with me, either within the topic or outside of it. Please message that in the chat box, and we'll find a way, because we are a small group here today. And small groups, I think, have the advantage of more intimate conversations. So we can do that as well. Yeah, so I'm just going to bring up my screen in just a minute, but please go ahead and let me know what brought you here today, or what's on your mind. Jimmy, you could help me with the chat box if there's anything coming, right? So just go ahead.
I'm trying to write my comment in right now. But I was to try and get things started. So I'll just say it out loud so I can pay attention to the chat.
Yeah.
I love to play, and so playing at full potential for me is like that's the perfect title, because I'm like, yes, how do we play at full potential?
Yeah. That's great. So that makes 2 of us. Alexander, you have a smile on your face. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I'm very interested to get to know what is coaching essence for the professionals from another part of the world.
Okay, got that. Thanks, Alexander. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
I see how anything with play gets me curious.
Okay. Thanks for that, folks. And if you feel like jumping in, even a little later, if there's some thoughts, please go ahead. Did I hear someone say something? Sorry, I
was just saying everybody else is being very quiet. Apparently, they need their 3rd cup of coffee.
You could send me one across virtually to this side, because I do not have access to my kitchen right now. Okay, let's jump in. So quick, context in terms of the approach for today's session. We will explore human potential and its connection with, the heart of coaching, the essence of coaching. I have tried to, based on my own experiences, and this is not of any literature, so this entire session is going to be quite experiential. So I'd love for you to bring in your experiences as coaches as well. There are 5 dimensions of potential that could be very helpful for us to really work with potential with our clients. And then, of course, understand how these manifest in coaching. Would love to do some experiential reflection and sharing. I'm also a big core competency fan. So, and believe me, this is not a retrofit, but, just some time spent on how these dimensions, in some manner of speaking, really integrate well with our own ICF core competencies that, we'll all be familiar, I would say, to varying degrees. And the last piece is usually what I do in my reflective practice, really trying to say, okay, as coaches, we work with potential of our clients, but how can we maximize our own potential inside and outside the session, and maybe connecting a few dots with mastery of our own craft, and how perhaps we can expand our own potential. Because I assume most of us would be in this for the long run. It's always a good thing to really think about our own potential and how can we look at it more expansively. Any questions or any thoughts about this? Otherwise, I'll move ahead. Thanks, Jamie. So let's start off with the basics. So some of it is maybe going to take you back to school, but please bear with me because, I think it makes sense to just go back a few steps and look at potential very, very simply. So this is the dictionary definition, and most of you would be familiar with this. Potential is nothing but having or showing the capacity to become something in the future, or develop into something in the future. So there is a certain latency, and also as a predictor or as an indicator of future success or usefulness. So latent qualities and abilities that may be developed and lead to future success or usefulness. So this is a dictionary definition, and this is where I would need your help, and I would like us to tap into your wisdom before you wear your coach hat on, and forget for a moment, right, about potential in the coaching room and helping your clients, etc., etc. But just look around your own life, around you, what you've seen with others, etc. How does human potential manifest? So when you look around yourself, how do you see, or when do you say that, hey, you know what, there's potential here, or there's something here, right? And how does this come across? So please unmute yourselves and just let me know how you experience potential in the world around you.
I think it's ability to show a person as he is, as ability and bravery to show the inner world of a person.
Sorry, Alexander, I was struggling a bit to hear your volume. Jimmy or anyone else, could you catch it? Could you just repeat that? And maybe you can just adjust your audio volume a bit, Alexander.
Oh, you're still muted, Alexander. No, you're muted.
Sorry, excuse me. I think it's ability of a person to show her inner self.
Okay. So showing your inner self. Yeah, that's interesting.
Great. Thank you, Alexander. I see in the chat, Ram says desire to grow. Heather says awareness. Laura says curiosity. I think I agree with all of those. I think human potential comes from a curiosity or just wandering and thinking blankly, like what is possible, what's potential. Oh, and I see I have Claudia. So let's go to Claudia first. She has her hand
I
up.
also saw Adriana's hand raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Adriana.
Okay, good morning. I think that potential sometimes manifests from a crisis, when there's a situation that make us like looking for tools like to go forward.
Yeah, so adversity and crisis lead to potential manifesting.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Adriana. Claudia?
Yes, I wanted to add, there has to be trust. There has to be room for that person to feel safe, to show their potential.
Yeah, so you're also talking about a certain systemic condition for potential to manifest easily. Trust and safety is very important.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I suppose I can't keep that away from coaches, and we will get there. So thank you. Anybody else?
A need for trust in oneself as well, right, Claudia? Like not only from others, but for yourself to trust that you could or should move forward.
Right. So like in the work environment, you need to have, people need to have safety. I think there needs to be trust for them to be creative, to have ideas, and to know that it's going to be safe, even though if it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Gotcha.
Sure. And just look around the world around you, right? I mean, it's not even with human beings. Sometimes, a system, let's say an organization manifests potential. Sometimes, a plant, right, which is a living thing, but not a human being, manifests potential. So it's interesting how we can also get inspiration from some of these things. So thank you for that. Let's move ahead. Now we come to really what, we do as coaches, right? If potential manifestation happens with that, what's really the connection between human potential and the essence of coaching? And again, bear with me, this is something all of you would know, but I really want us to go back, because I wonder whether we lose track sometimes as we jump into coaching, right? We work with goals, we work with objectives, etc. That fundamentally, coaching is about potential. If you go back to the ICF definition, yes, it is partnership. Yes, the process is thought-provoking, creative. But I think the bottom line, or if there's one, let's say, single objective of coaching that you need to pick one, it is about maximizing personal and professional potential. So while we get this as a definition, and then we also do all that we do with our toolkit, our skills, our competencies, how do we really sort of connect the dots? Because while doing all of that, how much are we aware and keep track that, here's where we started. This is where it all started, right? Coaching existed to maximize human potential. So I want to start off with the definition and really call out saying that potential is the highlight of this definition. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the concept of energy, because I think energy becomes very important when we try to understand potential. So, if you really see this, and again, this is where I said I take you a little bit back to, high school. Energy, and there are many types of energies, but, we'll talk about two very important types of energy, which is potential and kinetic energy. If you see this, little clip here, this GIF here, there's this ball, which is on top of that surface, right? There is that incline. The incline means that there is a path. There is a path to move forward. And yet, if you just see, it's sort of at that edge. It's going back, it's going forward. I was very, very enamored seeing this, right? And something inside me seeing it said, oh my God, when is it going to go, right? When is it going to move ahead? It's just that close. And yet, if you were the ball and you were in the place of that ball, there's something holding you, because the moment you need to really go that incline, even though it's the way down, you have no idea how you're going to land and how that's going to be, right? So it's very important we understand this, because as humans also, we can connect the dots with this, right? Now, this is where I talk about potential energy and kinetic energy. And again, this is very basic. Potential energy is derived because of the energy of position. You don't get it because of action or because of a certain velocity or because of movement, etc. Now, this energy has the potential to do work. So it is about what can be, right? But when potential energy, converts, and oftentimes kinetic energy gets released from potential energy. Kinetic energy is the energy of motion. So when that ball tips over and goes on that incline, it's going to be in motion. And that's when the potential energy that was there with this ball all along on top is going to get released. Boom. And kinetic energy is the what is. Yeah. So, release of potential energy, you may ask, saying, what does it take for that potential energy to convert into kinetic energy? And that's a similar thought I would encourage you to hold as coaches. If this ball was a human, or let's say in team coaching, if it's a team, but let's for now stay with one-on-one coaching. If it is a human being, the client who's across you, who's approached you for coaching, then we are talking about a process. When clients come to us with goals are always action oriented, right? There is some action, even if it means, a more, what do I say, a retrospective or an introspective action. There is action. They want some forward progress. Coaching assumes forward progress, right? So if, let's say, the result of coaching is kinetic energy, then we are talking about harnessing this potential and that process of converting that potential energy to kinetic energy. Now, that is the essence of coaching. A very different way to look at it. But imagine and visualize every one of your clients coming in with that, a lot of that. And that's why we say clients are creative, resourceful, and whole. And that's why in coaching, we don't do advisory. We don't consult. We don't do any of those other things. Simply because it goes back to potential. Many times, people, first timers to coaching, or, let's say the non-believers say, so what's so great about coaching, right? If you're not going to do any of this, where is it all going to happen from? And that is the beauty of coaching, because we are working with potential as coaches. And potential means possibilities. If I go back to this, if we go back to the science, this potential to kinetic is triggered by forces, right? So when there is an action of force, potential energy becomes kinetic energy, and then work is said to be done. So there are forces and other catalysts. Now, the question to us would be, in coaching, what are these forces and other catalysts? Or even if you go beyond coaching, coaching is not the only way to harness this, right? Coaching is one of the ways. It's a container. What else is required to really harness that? Because, and when we talk about competencies, we always talk about, clients not being committed to action, or they say something, there's an aha moment, and then they walk out of the room and nothing happens. It's perhaps because the conversion of this potential energy has never happened in the first place to kinetic energy. There needs to be that force and another catalyst. Now, one more concept I'll talk about, and I promise we will not talk science after that, which is, we saw this conversion of kinetic to potential, right? Now imagine the same, the ball that's gone down the slope. Through that kinetic energy and through the velocity that it had, it's interesting because when it lands, this kinetic energy has actually helped it build potential energy all over again. And that's the beauty of this process. Because, when we say, again, with competencies from CC1 to 8, it's not a one-way process. Right? Again, when, the clients get into action, etc., it needs to loop back again to build and enhance their potential. So all of these goals, all of this action, everything that's happening in coaching or otherwise, incrementally is building and adding to potential of this human being. So it's not a one-way process, potential to kinetic, but it's also about kinetic to potential. So I would invite you to stay with this concept of energy and really fundamentally try and see how we can connect it back to coaching. So this is my question for you. How can coaching be one of the forces and catalysts to unleash human potential? If human potential is so powerful that it can literally move mountains, right? It can. So, and here again, I would actually like us to stop the share in a minute and really unmute and stay with this question as to how does potential manifest in coaching? And this time, instead of looking at the world around you and the incidents, the systems around you, look at your clients, look at the people you work with, look at your coaching engagements, and take a minute or two to reflect upon how this potential manifests in coaching. How do you see it? Coaching definition talks about unleashing potential. How do you know? How do you experience it with the clients you work with? What are some of those things that give you that? And your answer does not have to be, comprehensive, but it's also about understanding some of these things where we see the coaching process support manifestation of potential. Jimmy, could you just stop the screen share so that we can talk a little bit? Thank you.
You're welcome. So how does potential manifest in coaching?
Yeah.
Who wants to kick us off here? Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Hi, sorry I'm not on camera. Sick kid at home today. But I think I see it, and I love it when I hear a client say something like, I had never thought of that before. Right? Like something that really opened their possibilities, something that expanded their thinking.
Yeah. Shakti?
Thank you. I think it's similar to Laura, and I think it's when they come to awarenesses of and more clarity about things that are important to them, so their values basically, and when they kind of sit with that and make it and find how it connects with everything else that's happening in their life, right? When that's kind of when I've seen them really kind of take the action and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It clicks, right? Alexander?
Yes, think it's about situation when a person start to look at its situation from the side. It looks more widely at the new situation from a new point of view, and start seeing his new possibilities. So I think let's go this way.
Yeah, and I do a tick on that. There's something about that I will talk in a bit, but yeah, about possibilities, a new way of seeing things, certainly. Anyone else? You could even share an example if you'd like, with a recent client experience or something.
Think when a client is able, and it goes along with what everybody's saying here, but when they realize that something may not be what they think it is, then a whole new door opens when they realize either it's a limiting belief or it's some sort of assumption or something is going on where they're like, oh, well, that means that I could do this instead. And so when they realize, when either whatever that block is that's in the way, when they realize, oh, that might not be the facts, that might not be the actual reality, then potential has a greater chance of arising, because now they've just grown in their, potential.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah. Go ahead, Adriana. Go ahead.
Sometimes when I realize that they like the question that I made, and because it's as they see something that can be, so you see the right in their faces, like saying, yes, it's here, or maybe it's from here, like make a thought-provoking question. So you start like thinking of a new possibility.
Yeah, I think Alexander also spoke about possibilities and new way of seeing. Go ahead, Alexander.
I just want to say it's a situation when a person's change the focus from its limitation to his possibility. And believe me.
Yeah, all lovely examples, and clearly coming from your own work with coaches. For me, the beautiful metaphor will be that from the cocoon, the beautiful butterfly. And as coaches, we're very privileged because we witness that. Sometimes we never will get to see the butterfly, right? And yet you're working with those stages. So it's very powerful. And I'm glad all of you connect and can have a sense as to where this happens. So I think this is great for me to know. Let me then jump in, and I think you perhaps connect with what I'm going to share in the next couple of slides. I think my screen is visible now.
Very good.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to break down potential a little bit, right? And so suppose we were to simply break potential, the way we want to, like the way we break down coaching. Again, this is very experiential. This is based on my own work. I find it very useful to look at potential. And many of you may be familiar with this, taking a whole person approach. Now, taking a whole person approach, and when you say WPA or whole person approach, this is largely used in the context of health and education, which essentially means that we're taking a holistic view. Now, it's very difficult to sort of look at just one slice of potential, or let's say if we were to look at potential as just a result, I think we'll be missing out on a lot of the important milestones and the real growth that happens. And we all agree, right? I mean, even and since Jimmy, you spoke about play, and I think some of us can relate to it. There are many times in life, or when the athlete does not win gold, and yet there is a beautiful phase of growth that happens. Now, it's very important to understand that as coaches, because otherwise we can get very attached to outcomes. To be able to see that difference, it doesn't mean that you're not taking responsibility for where the client wants to go, but it just means learning to discern that. So taking a whole person approach, a holistic approach, is very helpful when you look at potential, where we view the person not just through the narrow lens of, let's say, actions or behaviors or even outcomes, but truly as an integration of their inner self, right? Their body, mind, and soul. This allows for us to take a multi-dimensional cut as we understand the person. And we are understanding the person really to understand potential, to understand how coaching is actually showing up as you work with people, right? That's another beautiful way to look at it, because sometimes engagements are very complex. And you would hear coaches say that, coach cannot take entire responsibility for a very, very specific and narrow outcome. Client has to take that. While I think the coach becomes very, a coach is the catalyst in some ways. So I would be taking, whole person approach when we look at these dimensions of potential. And there are 5 of them that I want to speak about today. And again, these are not very complicated terms for you to understand, but I would invite you to just visualize potential through these lens and parameters as, the ways to kind of look and break down potential. So the first thing I would start with is purpose. So coaching really helps in manifesting and maximizing potential, because coaching as a process is also working with the purpose of a client. And when I mean purpose, not necessarily the narrow goal that they come with, but, as human beings, as a whole person, what is it that drives them? And I think Shakti mentioned it early on, really about what keeps them going. What's their why? What makes them tick? So a goal that a client brings in let's say a health related goal, could be, and even if two clients have exactly the same goal, their purpose as individuals and where this kind of fits into their life makes a huge difference in the way they would go about accomplishing it, or in the importance that it has. We ask this question, right, in core competency, erstwhile 2, and the recent, the new competency 3, we ask about this question about the meaning that a goal holds for a client. And this is the reason we probe for that, because that meaning makes a lot of difference in the way that particular goal is viewed as and also accomplished. The next dimension of, when that ball will roll off, right, and gather momentum and gain velocity is about passion. So purpose is about the why. Passion is about, the life, or, the energy that a person brings to that goal. It's really important to understand our clients' drivers in terms of what matters to them, what does not, what lights them up, what sort of gets them going. And this is, again, a very important dimension when we understand potential. The third dimension that I want to talk about is perspective. Now, some of you mentioned about the, light bulb moments and, the insights and the ahas, etc. While I think that's nice to have in coaching, and, clients certainly, feel very happy about it, and sometimes coaches do too. But the perspective I'm talking about here is not necessarily with respect to a specific goal or a micro goal. It is about their ability to take a stance and to have a point of view. Sometimes when you peel the layers of the onion, when you really go deep working with clients, many of them feel extremely uncomfortable because you are pushing them, or you are inviting them to be in touch with the deepest, sometimes perhaps the darkest parts of themselves. And they don't want to go there. And while you must absolutely respect it, it's also important to create, that container which can allow them to come back and, to kind of say, what, this is what this means to me. Their perspective about life, their perspective about work, their perspective about saying, why is it that, let's say, being in this certain way at work matters to them, their perspective about leadership. So while working with clients, you're also enabling them to grow through these things. And especially if your clients are able to stand out there and take, many times when we work with leadership coaching clients, executive presence is a huge theme that comes up. Executive presence is also about being able to have a perspective on things, right? You have a leadership stance. Many clients struggle to have that stance, and coaching can help them. And that is potential for somebody to come in and have a stance on leadership or diversity or whatever else they're talking about, work-life balance. Now, that is your client's ability to have perspective about issues that are meaningful to them in their life. And the fourth P that's really important is progress. When we look again, go back to that ball, it's not about being at this end to falling off or running off. It's about those small little, micro steps that it takes to reach the other end. Now, that progress is very important. If you're only going to be waiting and define success as when it finally takes off, when it picks up velocity, you're really missing the indicators where potential is waiting to, is blooming, and you're missing it. And coaching also, if you go back, and I will talk about it in the linkage to core competencies, is always measuring progress. And there's a reason why we do that. Because those little steps are what is contributing to the final, manifestation of potential of that client, within and beyond the coaching program, even sometimes. There is the fifth P that I'll talk about in just a bit, but I'm just going to put it out here. And Jimmy, you're going to be happy to see this. It is play. And play becomes a very important aspect, and I would even say a condition for, human potential to really really manifest. I'll mention about why that kind of connects here with many of these, more serious looking P's. Yeah. Now is where I'm going to go a little deeper and connect it with core competencies and how all of these elements have a place. And I'm not going to cut it, by the 5 dimensions, but I'm going to invite you to look at it as at a competency level. And there are 4 of these competencies which directly and, quite clearly talk about these dimensions, these 4 dimensions of potential. And, just stay with me as I quickly walk through these. And, it's not all of that, but very, very specific mentions. For example, if you look at core competency 4, which is all about cultivating trust and safety, and we heard about that just a few minutes ago. This competency, this sub-competency, this point that talks about acknowledging and respecting the client's unique talents, insights, and work in the coaching progress, in the coaching process, right? And if you really look at the word is unique, every client has that unique talent. Now, this connects, and when we do this, right, we are touching upon the spots of passion. Often passion connects back to some of our unique talents and insights, right? That make us, passion is about what makes you special, right? And we are trying to invite clients to explore that part about themselves. Now, I've had coaches who ask me in mentoring saying, how does this help with, the goal the client is working on, right? Why are we even going here? And this is why we go here. Because for that potential to manifest, you need to be able to create that space where clients can be in touch with their own uniqueness. Or, for example, acknowledging and supporting the client's expression of feelings, perceptions, beliefs, right? Values, beliefs. Acknowledging that can, be touching upon a very important dimension of potential. Similarly, in core competency 6, which is listens actively, the last line, right? This is about, focusing on the said and the unsaid. But look at the last bit of it. We're supporting client self-expression every step of the way. With every question we ask, we are supporting that. And self-expression, the client needs to be able to express it. And when the client is able to do that, that's also about the client being able to take and, own their perspective. They're able to own their perspective about work and life and everything in between. Or, when you're able to discern themes and patterns, we're talking about what's important for this client. More specifically, if you look at the last 2 competencies, it's all about potential and these dimensions, right? Asking questions to the client about their, new way of thinking, values, beliefs, needs, and wants. Asking questions that help the client explore beyond the current thinking. The current thinking may be good enough to work with a particular goal or topic, but we also encourage the client to go beyond, because when we do that, we are inviting them to be more resourceful. Coaching is not just about resolving or working on problems for today. It's also about, developing and tapping into that potential to be able to deal with problems for tomorrow. And that innate resourcefulness. The coach is noticing what is working that enhances this person's progress, right? The client, is being supported by the coach in reframing perspectives. We talked about perspective as an important dimension of potential. We are inviting the client to generate ideas about, how they can move forward. Similarly, if you look at core competency 8, there is a mention of, not just awareness, insights, and learning, but about worldview and behaviors. We're also inviting the client about moving forward and, and that's about progress. When we talk about resources, potential barriers, etc. And again, the reference to progress, right? Why does the client support and celebrate progress? I mean, the coach, why does he or she do that? So if you really look at our competencies, I think there are shades of purpose, passion, potential, perspective and progress that is so intricately built in. And as coaches, while we work on goals, while we work with measures of success, we work on outcomes, we work on action orientation, we're also creating the space for them to be able to really grow on some of these things, which is very important to enabling their own potential. The last one that I spoke about, and that is play. And there's a reason why this is here. Look at these kids. They are just so absolutely delighted to be in this state. They're playing. We've all, perhaps have childhood memories of doing that. Play is voluntary. Nobody forces anyone to play. When you're playing, you are completely switched off from time, right? You're freed from the barriers of time, the pressures that it brings in. There is a diminished consciousness about yourself. You're less self-conscious to put yourself out there, to come clean. There's only one inherent purpose. You have fun. It relieves stress. It enables creative problem solving. The toughest of problems can be solved when you're in a state of play. You think on your feet. It teaches you flexibility. It enhances the ease of learning. So when clients can be in touch with their play state, inside and outside the session both, not just in the session, it sets them up to get in touch with their own potential and possibilities, but minus of the stress and overwhelm. So in coaching, it's also about creating that lightness, to create that lightness where clients can be in touch with their play state and, while dealing with all the difficult problems that they may be having. So we're not laughing off problems, but I think we are playing with problems or goals. So that's why in the way I look at potential, play finds a very important part, along with the more, like I said, the serious of its serious cousins. So I'm just going to say this one last thing before I will take a pause and invite reflections from you. When we start, the coaching, the contract, etc., there are very few people, I have hardly, in my experience, seen clients who come and kind of say, hey, you know what, I want to be a better person, or want to work on the so-called who of the client. Nobody contracts for that. But we all know transformative, deep, and we saw about it here, many of these things about potential is about the who of the client. And so I go back to my, the way we looked at potential and kinetic energy. So the what of the session often flows when it comes to, I would say, advanced or masterful or any coaching for that matter, done well, touches upon the who of this client, because we're going beyond the transactional goals. But the beauty of this is the who of the client and going there and enabling that potential, making them comfortable or clearer about their purpose, their passion, and taking a perspective and all of that, actually sort of loops back into the what of the session. It enables them to problem solve what they came to you with in the first place. And that's why this is a loop. I find sometimes that, and that's why this dilemma, right, that coaches bring, that in trying to go to all of the potential and the who of the client, etc., we're just losing track of the goal that the client came with. The client wanted to work out 20 days a month, and instead of doing that, we've gone all over the place. But hey, can we look at going to all over the place, enabling you to come back stronger and sharper to problem solve working out 20 days a month. And that is powerful. And that's where we kind of deal with both ends. You know, we work on the what by coaching the who. And then it loops back. So I'm going to pause for a moment here. Just check in with you as to, you know, did this connect with you? Were there any disconnects? Were there any, you know, pluses and ticks on what I said? Let's talk about it. And once we do that, I would invite you to go into a little bit more of reflective space and see how you could think about these dimensions in your own work. So, Jimmy, I'm going to ask you for help again to stop. Thank you. You did that. Hi, Ram. Good to see you on camera. Any thoughts? Anything? I'd love to know what you're thinking about this. Like I said, this is not off a coaching textbook or a model. This is just built on lived experiences.
If I can start, maybe share something. The play part, I feel like the rest of it really resonates for me, and the play does too, but I'm realizing, and I think I've known this already for a while, the play part is probably my weakest, my least comfortable point, maybe is a way to say it. And I'm noticing it is for a lot of my clients also the weakest or least comfortable point. And I don't know that might be because of me, or that might just be who, I don't know. I'm curious, like, how does play show up? What is everyone else seeing in terms of how easily that playful state, or that playful perspective, or that play perspective can actually come into the other aspects, the topic, the other aspects that the clients are coming in with coaching.
Yeah, thank you, Shakti. I mean, thank you for, I think, sharing this with us, because you're right. I mean, you know, all of us have something, and that's my next question. Actually, you kind of pull that out. You know, things that we connect with, and you know, it just clicks so easily, and you know, there are parts that, you know, maybe not. So my sort of experience on this is, usually I find the coach leading, or the coach, you know, role modeling this, it has a bit of an infectious effect. And you know, in coaching, whether we like it or not, there is a power equation at play. And you know, while that's not for today's topic, that's one thing we all need to be very mindful as coaches. Because, you know, while we say equals, we say partnership, and, you know, we say, you know, we're at the same level, etc., irrespective of who you are, simply because the client is the one who's actually sort of being more vulnerable, whether you like it or not. While you can be vulnerable and you're not knowing and everything, clients are coming, you know, clean. They're sort of, you know, really putting themselves out there. So there is an equation, and you know, there is a balance of power, which is why I think whether it's vulnerability or whether it's play, it really helps to embody that in a way that makes sense to you, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that you're sort of laughing off through the session. It can be through, you know, small little things, or you know, even the way you look at work, or the way you look at a, you know, home task between sessions. You know, how do we incorporate that element of lightness and a little bit of fun, depending on who the client is and what works for them. I think also works. And the other thing that, you know, that's a note to self, and this is something that's been part of my growth and learning journey, is while I'm extremely passionate and committed and, you know, very professional about this role I play as a coach, I've learned to take myself less seriously. So, mistakes, blunders, errors, all of that works. All of that is just me being more human. And when I take myself less seriously, not my coaching, myself, I just feel, I'm a lot easier, right? And that kind of, also rubs off on clients a little bit. Yeah, it has the flip side that, sometimes very serious clients think that, hey, this person, maybe I should have hired a more prim and proper kind of coach. But that's okay. I mean, they will figure out my coaching will talk, right, through a few sessions, and they will experience that. So that's how I've approached it, Shakti. But great, lovely question. Alexander and Adriana, are you going to add on to this, or any other comments are okay too?
I just thought, what if all the pluses and minuses of a person is are an integral part of its potential? How can a person use it in positive way? Both pluses and minuses. It's very interesting.
I'm not entirely sure. So potential, whether I think in science or otherwise, human study refers to innate strength. So I'm not very sure how the minuses would contribute, but I have found that being aware of what some of your so-called minuses or, detractors or, the energy drainers, so to say, being aware of it can allow you to, in a way, not sort of get constrained, just accept and embrace that, yeah, all these minuses are there. And what I'm going to do is really going to be focusing on the pluses to take things forward. So that's usually also strengths-based approach, right? I find that useful when it comes to working with potential. And of course, there will be clients who will come and say that, no, I mean, I might have 8 things right, but I only want to build on the 9th and the 10th, which are so-called minuses. That's okay too. That's a choice of the client. But generally, I find that no client, like no coach, is perfect. So it's a good idea to work on what works for you while being mindful and being kind to yourself that, there are these things where you need more work, you need more effort. But, you can't wait for the day to get all 10 perfect before you say, I will jump off and, go down the incline. And that's the beauty of potential, that you don't have to have it all right to be able to take off and fly, which is also what a lot of entrepreneurs do, right? When they get into starting up, they don't wait for that perfection. They're willing to, and I think all of us, I mean, I don't know how many of you are entrepreneur coaches, but at some point you just say, I've arrived, and you set shop and you jump in. So that would be my approach to working with pluses and minuses, Alexander. Thank you for your very insightful question. Adriana?
Yes, it's about the importance of playing. For me, before coaching, playing was always and is always very important. And I told that to my kids. Now they are 2 men grown up. But for me, it's very important because when you play, you are free from time, but you are also free from the ego. And when you are free from the ego and you always make your inner child be alive, you can do anything. You can be whatever you want. And I think that it's a connection between the potentiality, the potential, and playing. Because you can be whatever, a fireman, a teacher, whatever. So you can find what you want to be. So for me, playing is very important in life. I like to be like make fun of myself, because it makes me find a lot of things that sometimes when I'm like in another position, like being a lady and whatever, and a responsible and serious person, I cannot do that. So when I go, oh, my Adrianita, my little Adriana, is where I can find my potential.
Yeah. I so love the way you put it, Adriana, and definitely your lived experiences. So there's this favorite from my childhood, which is so I'm not very tall as a person, very short stature, and I used to play basketball. Yeah, and and when I was on court, I used to think I was the tallest person out there. And that's the beauty of play, right? You said it. You can be anything you want to. You can be anyone you want to. And, and we all have our stages, right? I mean, irrespective of whether the world acknowledges it or not. And I think that's the thing about potential. You don't necessarily have to, win the NBA to say that you've arrived. Yeah, I mean, just a high school person playing out there can still feel like they are the best player out there. So which is connect so deeply with what you said. Thank you so much. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to move ahead because I do want to leave you with something and gift you with something, if I may, right? And I consider it a gift because it's very personal to me. So I'm just going to move ahead, but I'm happy for us to chat after this, if that's okay. Yeah. So this was a question I had for you. If you can just note down this, and maybe you want to, and I think Shakti led the way on it, but if you could all do that, that would be great, because I work with this a lot of the times in my own reflective practice. And I take my reflective practice very seriously. There's always time. There's always, space to do that, which I just find makes me coach a far better coach. So, in these 5 dimensions, and, Shakti spoke about it, but, so did Adriana. Did you experience or notice or miss anything? Go back to your last coaching session, right? Which of these buttons could you have pressed a little bit more? Where could you have tapped into? What did you miss? It may be progress. It may be progress that you just didn't notice, you just didn't see. Or maybe it could be that here is a client, who started taking a perspective on certain things, and maybe you didn't acknowledge it. Or it could be that, there was a beautiful container of play, and, that kind of completely empowered you and your client. So do go and reflect on this. This was supposed to be a breakout room activity, but I think we've kind of gone a little deeper into some other things, but that's totally okay. I'm going to move forward. So this is the last bit, right? Which is about, yeah, it's great. We as coaches, we are champions of potential, and we partner with our clients, etc. But what about our own potential? So here again, visualizing your own success as a coach, and what do you define as success, not what ICF or any other body or somebody else defines it, but what is your own definition of success as a coach? And I again do this very often, just manifesting my own potential, saying when do I feel that I have become that person, that coach that I want to be. This again is very, very useful to do. And this is what I was talking about. These 5 questions, like the way we spoke about it, each one touching upon one of the dimensions, you can screenshot it for yourself. And if it makes sense, I would invite you to spend some time on it in your reflective practice. And, if there's something you want to chat with me about, very, very happy to have that conversation with you, which is purpose. What's my coaching why? Why do you coach? Why do I coach? And this is my purpose. That kind of keeps me at it. Good days, bad days, not so good days. And it's okay if you don't have an answer. It's okay if you're confused about your answer. It's okay if your answer is evolving. But going back to this always kind of, it just keeps you on track to really harness your own potential. And some of these things change, every few years. Maybe the reason why you started off coaching is very different from the way you look at coaching and yourself as a coach today. And that's totally okay. What does coaching truly mean to me? In a manner of speaking, connected to the why question. But this is very important. What excites me about it? Right? What makes me come alive? This is not about what difference am I making to my client. Sure, that may make you come alive for some of us. But for some, for some others, it's very different. And again, there is no one way of looking at it. For me personally, I love the fact it's just so dynamic. Right? I can never prepare enough for a session. You would think that everything is done, and I love that dynamism. That's also the reason, like today, right? I was sharing with Jimmy that I have a script, I have a template, I have a plan, but usually more often than not, I'm totally okay to go off plan. And I think I was not like this 15 years ago. Today, I love this dynamism, which also means that I am able to work with difficult clients. I am able to work with sticky situations and still sort of love it and come out feeling, yeah, give me another one, right? So that's my space. But I had to work my way and figure that out for myself. Third one, this is about perspective. Like we spoke about our clients being able to take a perspective about themselves as professionals or human beings. It's really important for coaches to be able to take this perspective. What is your coaching narrative? What's your point of view? What's your elevator pitch about coaching? Not necessarily to sell the service. How would you explain coaching to a 10-year-old? What's the real deal about coaching? Do you have a point of view? It's not about, us being thought leaders or being a thought leader and, writing a white paper. This is about, and that kind of comes from purpose in some ways. Purpose is about your why, about why you do this for a living or, as a vocation. But coaching narrative is your ability as a coach to be able to explain coaching very easily, very simply, very commonsensically to anybody, and about you having a point of view. Now, that may not be the popular point of view. That may be a different point of view, but still, that's your point of view. This is about progress. Am I growing as a coach? Who's the coach I wish to be? So there's a why. It's also about what excites you, but you do have a vision and a goalpost, right? And if you don't, I'd invite you to ask yourself that. Today, you know yourself with your strengths, your limitations, etc. But what would be an ideal place for you? What do you aspire to be as a professional in this profession of coaching? And how do you know you're growing? Early on, we spoke about how do we know that coaches, clients are progressing, right? How do we see that potential? How do you see potential in your own self through the lens of progress? Touched upon this earlier, but I'll say it again. My favorite too. What creates lightness and play for you? How can you bring that into your coaching, into your sessions? And, as an extension, how can that rub off to your clients? Yeah. So these 5 questions, quite useful. Consider it as my gift to you. And if it makes sense, do share your stories with me. But this is useful for us to look at potential, right? Again, no different from the dimensions that we spoke about. But again, just makes sense. And that's about maximizing your potential outside the coaching room in a manner of speaking, right? Your narrative, your journey, your growth as a coach. Then there's also the dimension of maximizing your potential in the room, in the session. Now, this is where, and then again, we can spend, hours together going deeper into this. But I do understand this is, MasterClass by Master Coaches. So, something about connecting this back to mastery. And again, it's not a force fit, but I find what is mastery ultimately, right? In some manner of speaking, it is about exploring your own potential as a coach. And mastery not equal to MCC. Mastery as a journey anybody can take up. Mastery as a work in progress for coaches. And I find these elements very useful to think about when we look at maximizing our own potential in the coaching room. Of course, you can get great testimonials. You can get a variable bonus for your coaching. You can do all that. You can hike your fee by 30%. That's all one parameter, one way of looking at it. But this is about internal growth. This is about holistic growth. We spoke about whole person approach. So this is taking the same whole person approach for ourselves as coaches. 4 elements of mastering our craft, which is learning mindset, artistry, fluidity, and seamlessness. And I'm just going to talk about the headlines of what these are. And we ICF says these are demonstrated an MCC level coaching, but I think this is for anybody to embrace and look at as a filter to be able to say, how can I show up more masterfully in my sessions? Learning mindset is, and ICF defines this very nicely. It is about, a complete evidence or a state of the coach's role in being a learner about the client in every session, right? Even with your more familiar clients, you go in as a learner, right? You go in and, we heard about curiosity as an important ingredient of potential. Can I be as curious as I was about my clients as when I started off in coach training to, let's say, 15 years, 20 years, even later? Can I still have that childlike spark and curiosity in every one of my sessions about every one of my clients? Second thing is about artistry. Artistry is nothing but having a skill or a flair for something. So what are your, favorite skills, or, what are those skills you're going to be really damn good at? You sharpen your saw. And like we said, all of us have a strength when it comes to one, dimension of potential, maybe compared to the others. That's the same with coaching skills. All of us need not get straight 10 on 10s on all competencies. Though at a mastery level, the bar is very high. And that's what I was told when I wanted to go into application. But it's about having that flair and, depth about something, which makes you show up as, an artist who's proficient in your craft. Fluidity, in some ways, also connected with that state of lightness and play, which is why it's very important for us coaches as well, is nothing but the ability of a substance or, again, I go back to science, to flow smoothly, easily, gracefully. How can you still show up gracefully with that grace, even in the most difficult of conversations and the most challenging of clients? That is another indicator of, whether you're growing as a coach, you're able to manifest that potential. The last thing is about seamlessness, right? And this is something that, I certainly know in assessment, they look for in a manner of speaking, right? They expect you to sort of blend and seamlessly blend the application of competencies. And this is just not about an assessment. This is about really how we can be better versions of us as coaches. And it shows in the session, in the craft, and our clients experience that, right? They experience a certain mastery there, which is nothing but the depth of skill in a specific coaching competency or behavior. And then you integrate it beautifully across competencies or, elements of coaching in a very blended manner. So you won't realize, when the contracting has happened and when we've kind of moved on and when the, learning and growth and actions are happening. And that's the beauty, because then that experience does not feel artificial or force-fitted for clients. Yeah. I am mindful of time. So I am just going to be wrapping up with my last slide, which again, will be evocative for you to close today's conversation with in exploring potential. We spoke about potential for clients. We touched upon how we can look at potential for coaches. But Can we also look at potential for the profession? How can we expand the potential of coaching itself as a profession, as a modality, as an offering, right? Like the way medicine is, or, law is, or, something else, politics, management is, right? How do we impact, and expand the potential of coaching and thereby creating impact? So we can do it in two ways. The first is through our profession and our clients, which is just this in every session, irrespective of whether you're a life coach or, a career coach or anything else. But asking ourselves this, how can we partner in a way in every session or in every engagement, we are able to go in there and inspire, influence, and create impact? My favorite question is, why can't coaches be change makers? Why can't we be people who are leading and, we are the trailblazers creating that impact in the world we wish to see? We spoke about this in purpose, but, the larger question is, in a world that is increasingly getting fragmented and difficult and, challenged, can coaching be that safe container which facilitates higher purpose in individuals and communities and societies? The other one is through ourselves. How can we notice opportunities with curiosity? And this goes beyond of just the narrow limitation of a session. And we saw this during the COVID. And, Jimmy, you were kind enough to read out in my introduction about Coaches for You. That was a movement where coaches came together, noticing an opportunity, saying that, the world is hurting, right? The world is suffering. Now, how can we as coaches respond, in a very agile way, but also systemically through our craft, not doing some other, volunteering or service, which is great. But can coaching itself, heal the world in a time like this? And again, instead of being a profession that's nice to have, and, coaches are also there. Coaches are not fundamental to, the world being a good place. Can we change that narrative? And, can our profession lead change and progress? Instead of tailing, can we lead it? And I leave you, my friends, with 6 starters to expand your coach potential. And you can get a screen grab of this, all very, very straightforward questions. Again, this is something that you can use for your own reflection. And maybe 1 or 2 of them may enable you to expand your own potential. So I invite you over the next 6 months to coach in a space you've never coached in before, and this is not your environment. If you've never done life coaching, right? Or you've never worked with somebody who's not in a corporate or a leadership position, work with them. Demonstrate creativity in any aspect of your coaching practice. Do something different. If you're only used to contracting this way, or only used to, working 10 session coaching programs, can you do a program with just 3 sessions or something like that, right? Make a meaningful or tangible contribution. And that's why I love chapters. And whenever a ICF chapter invites me, I always say yes, because, people who are behind the scenes in a chapter, and there could be other ways of volunteering too, are actually making some contribution. Doesn't matter what your role is, whether you're an ambassador, whether you're in a task force, whether you are leading the chapter. Make that contribution your own little way. And, through that, you're creating impact beyond of the room. Try something different in your coaching in-session approach. If you are somebody who copiously takes notes, try what happens when you don't take a piece of paper into the session. Do you find something beautiful emerging, or you find it very challenging? Either way, you will push the boundary of your potential. Embrace a well-being practice, and all of us have. There's no one practice that works. Yoga doesn't work for everyone. That makes you fit for purpose. That just makes you physically, and we spoke about whole person approach, physically, mentally, emotionally, a better coach. And last but not the least, we spoke about this. How can you incorporate more lightness and fun into your coaching conversations? So any of these, if it works, I would be delighted. If you don't, add your own starters. appetizers to expand your coach potential. And it was great to be with you all. These are my coordinates. Look me up on LinkedIn. We're very happy to connect with you and keep the conversation going. And of course, your feedback would be great. Thank you. And yeah, I am done. 2 minutes to go. But yeah, I think I just raced through the last bit, but it was okay. I just wanted to at least touch upon it.
Well, thank you very much, Vijay. This was fantastic. I think there was a lot of learning going on, a little bit of expansion of mind through the idea of play, and working towards that full potential. So thank you so much for your time, for joining us all the way around the other side of the world. Alexander, thank you so much for always being one of the top supporters and attendees. And so good to see everybody else. Oh, I see Misha has her hand raised. So she's got the floor right now.
Hello, everyone. I am still in traffic. I'm commuting today. I'm traveling today. And I just want to jump in to say, first of all, thank you, Jimmy, for being such a great host all the time. And BG, thank you so much for sharing your genius zone with us. And more on that really quickly. I want to thank everybody that's there or present with us this morning. Some shout outs. I heard some names: Shakti, Claudia, Alexander, Heather, and Adrian. Did I get that right? I can't see anybody, but I just want to give a special shout out for just always showing up and supporting. And back to you, Vijay. Thank you again for sharing your genius zone with us. You know, you took my mind into another level, especially with comparing potential to energy. And I tell you, that made something in me jump, and I'm running with the formula, I'm calling it, with purpose, passion, perspective, progress, and play. And that's all like memorized. That's how much you impacted me this morning. Because I have to pay attention to the traffic I'm in. I'm on the road for 4 hours today, but I'm hoping to get my family and I safely to where we need to be. And thank you again, BG. I appreciate you. Thank you for with us and challenging us to take action of our mission here at ICF South Florida. And I will go back on mute. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Misha.
Jimmy, if you will permit me, I'd like to say thank
Please.
you in Vijay's language. Romba nana the session.
Thank you, Ram.
Interesting. So thought-provoking. You know, I would love to connect with you and get to learn more. I know. Romba
Pleasure,
nana.
Ram.
Very proud.
Thank you so much. Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much.
That's fantastic. Wow, thank you very much so much. Shakti, I wanted to talk to you afterwards, just because, or I can tell you right now if we have, I mean, I don't know, if anybody has to go ahead and go. Vijay, thank you again very, very much. Love the idea of play. And if I may just make a comment about Shakti's thing about people who might not want to play and want to get, you know, like feel a little uncomfortable, like, hey, this is business, this is work. This is not about play. What do you think about the idea of playing with? What do you think about the idea of using different words? So instead of play, we are either thinking outside of the box, working towards a space of innovation, imagining, supposing, and using different words instead of play, because then it sounds more business-like or a little bit more working-like. And then that way, maybe you can get into that space. And just like play has rules, you probably like having rules and guardrails. And so sometimes really good thought and new perspectives come from having a constraint of some sort.
Jimmy knows me so well. I do have rules and guardrails. I am also somebody who likes to break them, but I have them for a reason. And I'm realizing I love what you're saying, because I think that having a different perspective on play and what it means and how you show up in that way is wonderful. And kind of going outside of your comfort zone in that perspective, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things that we do as coaches is not only take ourselves out of our comfort zone, talking about partnership, but also, you know, taking our clients there and supporting them as they do that. And I know as I've been listening to this, the play really kept kind of playing in my mind, and especially when I listened to Alexandria's feedback and or Adriana's feedback about how much she kind of is so comfortable with play and how much it resonates for her. I know where this comes from. There's a saboteur here. And I think so there's some work that I would like to do. And so I really appreciate the 6 starters that you left us with. And I can work with that and what Jimmy mentioned, and I wouldn't challenge myself before the end of the year to do some work with that. So thank you.
I'd love for us to connect and for you to let me know how that went, Shakti, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. I will look you up on LinkedIn if you're there.
Yeah, sure. And Jimmy, fantastic point, because, you know, it's interesting. I've never used the word play with any of my clients, but I think it's the ingredients, right? Creating that space where, you know, they just lose track of time and, you know, trying to pretend in a certain way. And that just brings out the most primal state in clients, and that's what play does. So thank you so much, Jimmy. I'm going to drop off. I need to head to dinner. It's past 8 here, 8 p.m. So see you everyone, and thank you once again. It was such an honor and pleasure to be with all of you.